Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome, everyone.
And we had a choice of what we were going to talk about today. We were either going to talk about tax evasion because of Pope Francis's little scolding for us terrible, evil tax evaders who aren't paying the income taxes because we don't believe in redistributionism. Or we could talk about science, and I think we're gonna talk about science.
Hold on just a minute.
Kind of.
Well, let's talk about science, but real quick, I have not read about this Pope Francis thing you're talking about.
Okay,
and I just want to get straight. Was he actually talking about the income tax not as a way of supporting the functions and operations of government, but specifically as a wealth redistribution mechanism?
If I understand,
we have to support it like that.
I didn't read the article. It was in I can't think of the.
I just the way you said it, it's like, wait a minute. Say you have to contribute your fair share to the stuff your government does for you. That's one thing, but to come out and say you're being morally bad for not contributing to the redistribution of wealth, that's like just so anti-Catholic to say that.
Yeah. Pope on taxes.
Okay, Breitbart.com, Pope Francis, taxation is a important tool for wealth redistribution. So that's their headline. We'll have to go back and read it. See what he actually said. Because sometimes headlines are a little bit misleading. We'll go back and read that in detail.
It looks like it is what it is. What you see it, I think you could take it at face value here.
Yeah. Okay.
Taxation must favor the redistribution of wealth, safeguarding the dignity of the poor and the least, who always risk being trodden underfoot by the powerful. The taxman, when he or she is just, promotes the common good. What the hell is the common good? What does that mean?
You know what? Let's talk about that along with this, because there's a really good explanation and definition of the common good that is not what he's talking about.
Yeah.
In fact, he completely misunderstands what the common good is. So,
yeah.
All right, next week, guys.
Yeah, we are going to dig into this in depth next week and answer the question, is it sinful to evade taxes? But until then, we'll talk about science, pseudoscience and fake science and all the other wacky science, because it just occurred to me that, I'm seeing these scientists and not so scientists tell us all these, it just seems like insane things. And then I see other men who are of equal stature, academically, say the exact opposite. And it's like, okay, both of these camps can't be right. One of them has to be wrong, and one of them has to be wrong in a really, really big way. It can't just be, I was mistaken. It's like, no, your whole way of looking at all of this is so far off that it's inexcusable.
So do you have like any specific examples?
Well, for the climate change. Well, no, let's just talk about these masks.
Okay.
And I'm saying scientists, but not necessarily science. Science is one of those things, it's
kind of broad.
It's pretty broad, but a medical person is a scientist. They're
right.
Yeah. It's the practice of science,
Mm-hmm.
It's and they're on the ground. A doctor had to go to school to learn to be a doctor. He had to do well and things. A very long time. And he had to do he had to do some things that you can't really fake, like mathematics, chemistry, things like that. He had to at least take part in these things and pass. So why would my local doctor say you should be wearing a mask? Why would any doctor say that? When they know that all the studies say that they shouldn't wear masks, or that the masks don't do anything for us. Are they giving in, or is there something wrong with them? And why are they following this protocol that's been sent out? It blows my mind, and it reminds me of, and when people talk about it and argue about it, and I hear the two sides, it kind of reminds me of what Galileo went through, where he's trying to convince them that this is a better system to look at our solar system through, and to be able to calculate where the planets are going to be and stuff like that. And he was rejected by the leading scientists of that time.
Yeah, that's something, to understand, is that people think of the Galileo story as Galileo sort of representing the science of the day being beaten down by the Catholic Church, representing the anti-science not wanting to change beliefs or whatever,
right.
like that.
Yeah,
it wasn't really like that.
Yeah.
The science consensus of the day was against Galileo.
Yeah, and
that's kind of important to understand.
Yeah, so the way the science consensus today is against the guys who are saying, look, man has nothing to do with climate change. Climate just changes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And in the same way, Louis Pasteur was fighting the science of the day, saying, hey, these diseases are caused by microbes. And they were saying, no, they were not caused by microbes. And he's saying, yes, they are. There's germs. You should wash your hands before, say, operating. And they didn't believe him. He had to convince them, yes, you have to wash your hands because you have microbes on your hands and you're putting them into this person's body, and that's what's causing the infections. The science of the day was against him on it. And as a matter of fact, he wasn't even a doctor, and he was saying these things. And he was coming up with these vaccinations, but he was not allowed to administer them. The French National Academy of Medicine were condemning him because they're like, you're practicing medicine, you're not a doctor. And of course, it was he was careful not to do that. He was careful not to actually give the
there was
injections.
A line that he didn't cross for legal purposes.
But that was the doctors of the day were against him. Now they had an understanding of things, and he challenged it, and they wouldn't accept it. Now we've got. It's weird. We've got this body of scientists who have a way of understanding what's going on around us, and
almost feels like they ignore it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like, well, wait a minute. Some of these things are blatantly obvious. No other scientists before thought some of the things that you're saying, and there's a lot of scientists now who are saying, no, you're wrong, even though they have the consensus. They refuse to even answer the objections. What is it that holds them to this anti-human attitude? Is it the same kind of thing that kept the scientists of Pasteur's day or of Galileo's day from agreeing with them? If he comes up and says, here, this is my theory, and maybe, this is my proof of the theory, why would they reject that? And is it the same people, is it for the same reasons that people are rejecting the theories of today that say, hey, you guys are wrong. We're not causing global warming.
Well, I kind of wonder, though, like in Galileo's day, let's just take that. So there were people studying things. There were people who were interested in knowledge. They wanted to understand the world. They wanted to understand the cosmos. They wanted to understand how things worked because they saw it as a way of sort of better grasping the perfections of the mind of God and that kind of stuff. There was a sort of unified view that knowledge of all kind is good and is godly. whether acquired through natural observations and natural means, through theoretical mathematical thinking, or in other kinds of knowledge, biblical studies, theology, and that sort of thing.
So, wait a minute here. So what I often wonder is, do these people, the people who are learning in that time, who are going to these universities that are popping up all over Europe, mostly run by either the church or people from the Catholic Church, is there some kind of practical application to what they're learning? Like in mathematics, do they take that and apply it to structures and buildings to make them stronger or make them bigger and things like that?
I think
Did that exist as much?
Well, not as much. I think there were those who did, but back then, the university was not a thing. Like today, you're kind of expected to go to college, and if you don't go to community college, that means you're probably going to a university somewhere. And the university is kind of a popular landing place after high school. It wasn't like that back then. In order to study at a university back then, I think you kind of had to have a way of providing for yourself, which means you came from a rich family.
Yeah.
And so the universities were not for the purpose of training into job skills and things like that. The idea of a skill directed degree at a university didn't even exist back then.
Okay.
It was a place where the intention was the pursuit of knowledge.
Okay. And that would make a huge difference. I mean, nowadays, a company who wants to make a better product has to hire scientists to help them make that better product. And they get those scientists from the universities who are training them specifically to help that company make a better product. It's
right.
It's wrapped up
they sponsor research projects at the universities that are conducted by university.
Yeah, there's that too.
Postdocs and that kind of stuff. Into whatever, materials science, electronics, any number of things, with the intent of commercializing the knowledge that comes out of the research.
That's always at the heart of it nowadays. I mean, there's science, there's things like, there's practical science and then there's theoretical science. Like, we've got things like, just chemistry, how to make better plastics. And that is, I would think, it would be controlled by commercial forces. And then there's things like string theory. There's no real practical application here. Well,
you could even think, bring it a little bit closer. There's chemistry. The chemistry of simply, let's say biochemistry, of simply understanding what happens within living organisms, living tissue, living cells, and all of the various chemical reactions and how they all support each other and balance each other. And that kind of, there's a tremendous amount of chemistry in there. Much of it we still don't really understand. So there's a lot of research just for the sake of the knowledge of it. But the pursuit of that knowledge also ends up, even if you have some people that are just pursuing it for the sake of deepening knowledge, then there's, okay, wait a minute. Now that we understand this, there's a way to apply this. And then they find some way to apply it. So you even without going as esoteric as like string theory, you can see there's a distinction between just within chemistry, which was a good example, between the pursuit of knowledge for the sake of knowledge and the pursuit of applied knowledge. But the one kind of precedes the other. There's the underlying knowledge kind of suggests a potential application, and then you have researchers who go and actually research that particular application of a chemical process or a chemical principle or a biological process or whatever.
Well, in something like environmental science, there's no real application that can be demonstrated. I mean, if environmental science was a worthy pursuit, then why aren't they turning deserts into grasslands?
Because the monetization, the commercialization of environmental science doesn't rest in the direct application of environmental knowledge. It rests in the research itself. When it comes to environmental science, the game is to acquire the research grants and the research money by making a case that there's a crisis that we need to know more about. Oh, if there's a crisis, then we better pay you a lot of money. If the conclusions were all accepted that there's not really anything to see here, and even if there is, there's nothing we could do to affect it one way or the other, then there wouldn't be any money. There would be no more reason to research it, and nobody would get money for researching it.
So we've got people like the EPA saying, we need to research this. Here's grant money. Tell us what we want to hear. And the
EPA, I mean, the EPA ought to be satisfied with doing what they were actually created for, which is local environmental protection. Okay, we want to keep you from dumping toxic chemicals into the river because there were fishermen who rely on fish from the river, and if the fish all die or if they're carrying toxic chemicals, that's bad for people. Yeah. That's an EPA concern. Or you need to put scrubbers on your smokestacks because what happens is you fill your city up with dirty smoke, and then when you get a weather inversion over your city, it turns into smog and people can't breathe. That's an EPA thing. But that has nothing to do with climate and world environment and stuff like that. That's the EPA's scope should be fairly local and fairly limited like that. But
even then, they have situations where it's like, okay, you're a dry cleaner, you use a certain amount of chemicals. When you're done with that, you have to dump those chemicals somewhere. I'll tell you what. We're going to put these restrictions on you to where you have to have these chemicals tested before you can dump them. Now, we can't charge you for dumping them. We can't be in the business of accepting bad chemicals that you want to get rid of. What we can do is be in the business of charging you thousands of dollars to test every single barrel of chemical that you want to get rid of.
Right.
And they make an enormous amount of money doing that, and it stifles smaller businesses because they just can't afford some of the gigantic fees that come from when they have to dispose of waste, getting it tested. Oftentimes, even when it's nothing, it's water that's a little bit dirty, but the EPA gets their money from that. They go to the universities and say, we need grants to show how this chemical is, or we need studies to show how this chemical is destroying the environment. And then we can continue collecting this money, and we can continue giving you the grant money so that you can tell everyone and back up what we're saying. I see something like that easy to happen. Mm-hmm. If it's not happening. I imagine it is. Well, I've seen some of these things happen.
So, that's, but that's the thing. You take a government agency like the EPA and any government agency, the people in it, the people who run it, the people who are at the head of it, if anybody ever thinks otherwise, they're just a complete fool. Every single government agency wants a bigger role for itself than it has.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? You take whatever your scope of responsibility is and you work hard to make it look more important in the scheme of things than it actually is. That's how every single government agency works. Period. No exceptions. There's not a single exception out there to that fact.
Yeah. And when you've got a country so bloated with agencies that we're creating a worldwide problem that so far out of the scope of what they ought to be doing, as you were saying before, telling us there's this worldwide climate change problem that somehow the U.S. is going to fix. It gets kind
or even the U.S. along with all the other countries.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, well, the thing is, like I'm trying to think. Like, see, that's like back to the the Galileo. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I could imagine that there are people who were somewhat invested in, for example, models of the solar system.
Yeah.
That, had the Earth at the center, blah, blah, blah. You had the planets, and then they had the theory of the epicycles of orbits and stuff like that. And I could imagine that, okay, Galileo comes along and he says, you know what? I think that there's good reason to think that the sun's in the middle and the Earth is one of among a number of other planets. And we all just kind of follow one path, no epicycles or anything like that. Well, the people who have been spending a lot of their time developing the necessary math, the necessary models, taking the necessary observations, it's like, wait a minute, in one fell swoop, you're making my life's work moot. Okay, well, they have kind of a personal reason to be against Galileo's work. They've got investment in this, and furthermore, this is what they're asking, the universities that they're at to continue to support them working on. And these universities, that are funded by... Now, I don't think... It's not like the modern system where you apply for grant money to pursue a specific kind of study to determine a specific kind of result or answer a particular question or something like that. I think they're more, broadly funded. Okay, this... a rich family might give X amount of dollars or X amount of whatever money they had to this university, and then this university has so many, whatever counted as professors at that time working for them, and they go off and they do their own projects, and they exchange letters and publish their papers and that kind of stuff. I think it was a lot more loose in that sense. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to lose my funding for my my model of the solar system or anything like that. I think it had a lot more to do with just the people who had spent their life working on this math and the complexities and so on and so forth. Well, naturally, they're going to, wait a minute, you're telling me that this stuff doesn't matter?
All the stuff I've been teaching for years is wrong?
Yeah. That's, and you can kind of understand that point of view because they were coming from a model of science where you kind of took things at face value. They did have the concept of models in the sense of like Galileo himself. It's not like he was in some kind of battle for the truth that the sun was at the center of the solar system. Mostly what he taught is that, hey, this is kind of a cool model to understand the motion of planets. Mm-hmm. And eventually, he started thinking, that it kind of makes sense more and more to consider this model to be a better representation of reality. And so they did have that concept of scientific models and being able to sort of trade off against them. But at the same time, they also had this idea of science as, okay, you develop your knowledge of how things work. You explore, you study, and you add to the increase of knowledge. I think today, or at least not in the last, couple of decades, but coming up through the, into the say 20th century, there was a lot more understanding of science as, okay, these are just models and we keep using them and studying them until we find something that breaks the model. Then we got to come up with a new model, and then we keep going from there. And so there's always this kind of expectation that things are going to turn over, and there's going to be a little bit of churn or whatever.
Yeah.
But back then they didn't quite have that. And so when you look at it face value, well, yeah, I mean, it looks like the Earth's kind of sitting still here. I don't feel like I'm moving anywhere. And I see, the stars move around, and then there's these things that move a little bit differently from the stars. Okay, well, they're moving around the Earth in some way. The sun itself also. So when you sort of take the observation at face value and then start building your model from there, you can understand at least how they got to a point of being convinced in the
Hold on a second.
Sort of Earth-centric model.
Where is this?
Paris, right near where Buddy is a tree.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that crazy?
My wife sees a picture and she has to stop me and show me a picture of a burning truck.
Oh.
I don't know why.
Is it burning right now?
I don't even know. It's close to where Buddy used to live, but it's not like we know anyone out there, but
yeah. It
was important that I see that picture.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry to. Let's see.
So I was just saying, it's a little bit forgivable in the Galileo case that the science.
It is more forgivable.
Sort of aligned against
However,
him.
It seems like we went the other direction, where it's like every single grad student out there is trying to find some kind of ground-shaking theory that will challenge everything else, never building off of what's already there. It seems like that's a thing. We want to come up with why all the things we learned up till now has been moot.
Yeah, but only in certain... I mean, in some ways, yes. I mean, like if you're talking about, say, cosmology, sure. He would love to do that. Or, somebody would love to discover, say, that cold fusion cold fusion is real, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me that there are also there are kind of like rails or tracks that you have to be on. You call it a rut. A rut you have to be in if you want to get funding for certain kinds of research. If you want to do research, if you want to do climate research, and you're exploring, for example, reasons that say we ought to be increasing our carbon levels within the atmosphere of the Earth, and that the carbon level, that we would all benefit if the carbon levels, say, doubled or tripled. You're probably not going to get funding for that. So
right.
nobody's going to look into that. Not because it isn't legitimate research, but because there is now a sort of politicization of science that goes beyond just people sort of being protective about their personal work. It's now becoming kind of
there's an
agenda driven. There's an agenda behind it.
Yeah.
If you're not with... Mm-hmm.
What I'm wondering is that the same thing that existed in Louis Pasteur's time? Was there an agenda that needed to be protected at that time? Or was it just people were married to what they had been doing all along and poo-pooed new ideas because of what you described earlier?
Or, yeah, that's...
I wonder that sometimes, and I've looked into it, and I've not really found anything to say either or.
One way or the other, okay.
I mean, you've got doctors all across France who have practiced a certain way their whole lives, and now you got this guy coming up saying, well, you got to wash your hands before you operate, and they're like, well, that's just silly. And they weren't really that invested in not washing their hands. On the other hand, if they start, man, I've lost 400 patients to infection, and I could have avoided most of them just by washing my hands. Nobody would want to admit that.
Well, that's true.
But there wasn't as much money, I imagine, because there's no money in not washing your hands. Of course, they did have medicines for certain diseases that Louis Pasteur was was saying that he was going to end. Like anthrax.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine there was a little bit of an economy around anthrax and rabies and things like that, both of which he came up with a vaccine for.
So I don't know, because I don't know what maybe how the funding model of science might have been different in because Galileo, who we talked about, that was almost like 300 years before Louis Pasteur.
Right.
Louis Pasteur was, I don't know,
1883 is when he
died?
When he came up with the vaccine on anthrax.
Okay. So, like, that's like right in the heart of the Industrial Revolution, right? I mean...
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit later, I don't know. But the thing is that it was a different world. I don't know how science worked then.
Okay.
Compared to how it worked in, say, Galileo's time. Were there, did science funding come from government then as largely as it does now? So now you've got,
I don't think it did, because he, aside from a lot of these things that he did, like he had gone to war and he had sworn his family to keep his notes and all of his research a secret.
Oh, okay.
He did not want them to publish his works.
He's doing it on his own.
He's doing it on his own, but he's coming up with treatments that he can sell. And he was accused in one or two cases of plagiarizing and of using other people's science to create his own thing or to claim it as his own. For example, the anthrax inoculation. There was a guy named Koch that claimed that he was using his method, but so there was money around it. There was money that Pasteur could make from what he was doing.
Was almost like an entrepreneurial model, though.
Yeah.
Rather than Okay.
My question is, was there money in not allowing him to do it? And I haven't seen anywhere there might be, which it seems like maybe the world's in kind of a new condition that this is unprecedented, where there's a huge economy that surrounds science, and if they're wrong, they stand to lose a lot. And so how could anyone trust that situation? How can anyone look at what's being claimed in the, quote, scientific community today and say, oh, this must be right because it's proven by science? When you keep that in mind,
stake for the science. Yeah.
Why would you ever trust that?
It's like just the amount of money at stake. Why doesn't that make everybody a skeptic?
Right. And it seems like, I guess more and more there are people who are saying, oh, whoa, wait a minute, and starting to take a second look at this. But there's still just a huge amount of people who just swallow it wholly, and they say, well, it was in this scientific magazine, and we've got cases where people made up stuff and put it in these magazines, and it would be published as a peer-reviewed paper when
it's garbage.
It was garbage from the start, and they knew it was garbage, and they put it in there just to show people, hey, these papers are nonsense. These magazines, these peers that, quote, review everything, they don't really review it. Otherwise, they would have spotted how idiotic this is.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's actually another, and I've heard that the very concept of peer review has become a problem in modern science.
Yeah, because which peer and what do they have in it? And
yeah, I mean, it kind of becomes a sort of a religious reinforcement of the status quo of science.
Yeah,
almost like it's like the not the Inquisition, the index of books or whatever, the forbidden index of books by the church.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody can know about this science. You can only know the science that we let you know.
One of the things that made me think of all this is, do you know that guy? I don't even know his first name, but he's got a podcast called the Corbett Report.
No. Did you say Corvette like the car?
No, Corbett, C-O-R-B as in boy, E-T-T.
Oh, okay. No.
He's kind of he's a little bit of he's like a truther, and he's a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't think a lot of his theories are right. And I certainly don't agree with his, he's a libertarian. But he hits on a lot of things because things like this, things with the climate control or climate change, most of that, as we've talked about many times before, most of that goes back to abortion and the anti-human sentiment in the scientific community today. And he recognizes that. So he happens to see a lot and talk about a lot. I just think he comes up with the wrong conclusions. Yeah. Anyway, he was, he's had close to 400 episodes, and he was finally banned by, YouTube.
Oh, wow. For what? Just for having bad conclusions?
The last published episode was something called Science Says.
Uh-huh.
And he just talks about science in general and the way it's gotten so weird and the way there's an obvious agenda here. And so when people say you're denying science, you're not denying science, you're just denying that agenda. But that was what got him kicked off of YouTube.
Yeah.
And because of getting kicked off of YouTube, because of that episode, I just wanted to hear some more of his podcasts. So I started listening to him on Apple Podcasts. This is maybe a month or two after he's been kicked off of YouTube. Mm-hmm. And then he disappears from Apple Podcasts.
Oh, wow. So they wiped all his podcasts out, huh?
Yeah, they're really trying to... you could still find them. I think I got them on...
That's weird. Why would they...
Stretcher or Stitcher. I got them on Stitcher. I'm still listening to them. But it's just, why was this the episode that caused him to...
disappear everywhere?
Anytime the mainstream media or nowadays, social media tries to squelch something, I think, there must be something here.
It's because there's something there that's worth hearing. There's some bit of truth there that they're trying to keep people from latching onto. That's
almost
axiomatic today.
I don't agree with most of the things that he thinks and says, but there's got to be something here. Why would they care if he said it if there wasn't something there? I mean, why not just ignore him the way they always did before? Because he's got all kinds of 9/11 theories and stuff like that.
Suddenly he said something that happens to be true, that a bunch of people started latching onto and listening to, and that the establishment community doesn't want people paying attention to for whatever reason.
Right. Now in that podcast, he talks about a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn, Kuhn.
Okay.
And I got the book, and I mean, all of this happened in the last week, me discovering this.
So you haven't read it yet.
So, yeah, I haven't even begun reading it yet. But some of the stuff he went over in the podcast caught my ear. And this guy, Thomas Kuhn, he was interested in the history of science and how there were movements within this industry or within this this understanding. But I think probably, that was originally published in 1962. Probably the guy, that probably doesn't have a whole lot of bearing on what's happening today because of what we've been talking about, this weird economy surrounding science. Yeah, I just turned it off and on a couple times. My dang thermostat is broken. You gotta do it a couple times sometimes.
Is it one of those like digital, like you got to plug into it kind of thing?
Yeah, it's. Come on. There we go.
It's a bad time for it to turn off.
You got to smack it. Yeah, 76 degrees. Here's what happens. Maybe I had to get a new thermostat. It's a digital thermostat. It's digital. So you see the numbers on the front and you go the buttons up and down.
Yeah.
And every now and then the screen will go blank. Well, whatever mode the furnace was in when that screen went blank, it stays in that mode.
Oh, heating, or if the AC's running. Okay.
Or if everything's off.
Mm-hmm.
So if everything's off when it goes blank, it gets cold. If the furnace was actually blowing fire when it turned off,
it's going to stay.
Now it just gets hotter and hotter. So we have it set at 69 and it's 76 degrees in here. I don't know why I didn't. I was comfortable, but.
So here's the question. Does it go blank on its own just whenever, or is it always when somebody's messing with it?
No, it does it on its own when nobody's looking at it.
That's bad. Because that could happen like right as everybody's going to bed.
Yeah, but we would wake up and look, my household is weird. There are people up. There's never a time when everyone's asleep.
Somebody will get uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that too. Even if I'm in bed, if I wake up sweaty, I'm like, oh man, what the hell? Yeah. And I'll go down and check. But it's bad either way, and you're right. I should have already replaced it, but I keep not doing it. Instead, I go over and I tap on it or flick it or turn it off and on, and then it works again for another couple weeks.
You're like one of those old scientists stuck in a rut.
Yeah, I'm stuck on this thermostat that I replaced a couple years ago. I figure it should last more than a couple years. And
yeah, thermostat should last more than a couple of years.
I refuse to accept the fact that it's broken and needs to be replaced again. I'm going to hold on to it.
So you'd fit right in the modern science community.
Yeah, I would. So, Structure of Scientific Revolutions. It looks like an interesting book. I do plan to read it, but I don't think it has a whole lot of bearing on what's going on right now in the scientific community.
Well, did the guy in his podcast somehow relate it to what's going on right now, or was it just he just talked about the book? He
talked about what it was that would eventually cause a scientific revolution where they're like, okay, we need to actually change these things. And the fact that it took a lot to have, it took a lot of not being able to explain things with the old and being able to explain things with the new before they would actually change.
Oh, okay. So the inertia of science, in other words.
Right.
Like the Galileo problem, like the Louis Pasteur problem.
Right. So, but in this case, it's very specifically, it's not that people can't see the truth. It's that they want to stop the truth.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what goes
aligned against it for some reason.
In Galileo's day, were there people who looked at his model and said, that is a better model? As a matter of fact, that's probably exactly how it happens. And understood that. Yeah. Did that ever happen? I don't think it did.
That's a good question. I don't think so either. I think there is a sense, there is a way in which we're kind of in a unique position today with regards to science, historically. Well, that's rare. You usually don't like the coffee hot.
Well, I get it to where there's like maybe 4 or 5 tablespoons of coffee left, and by then it's cold. So I go pour fresh in to heat it up. I don't like it cold. I just don't like it scalding.
Don't like it super hot, piping.
Yeah. So anyway, and that was what got me to thinking about maybe we ought to talk about this because it's odd.
Now you've got me interested in the book, because now I want to read the book too, and I want to do a book review on it on one of our podcasts.
I cannot figure out
how to make it a Catholic subject.
No, I can't figure out how to copy it and send it to you.
Oh, I can get my own, unless it's like rare.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's not rare. You can get it. You could get the ebook.
Yeah, I might do that.
So, and normally I would copy the ebook and just send it to you, but every now and then one comes out that I'm unable to copy and send to someone.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You know whose book is like that? Timothy Gordon's The Case for Patriarchy.
Oh, really? I got that for Christmas, just the physical book.
Have you read the whole thing yet?
I haven't even cracked it yet. I read his Catholic Republic. I read the
first chapter.
And I liked it.
Okay. Hold on. The thing is, I know that there are, quote, scientists out there today who really do buy into all this stuff. And then there are people who I don't...
And it's possible that it's even the majority of them who buy into it honestly.
You think?
I said it's possible. It maybe not. But what I am convinced of is that there's a significant number who either know it's a bunch of bosh or who don't care.
Yeah.
And in their minds, the science isn't about reality. It's just about providing the right narrative. And this is what does that. And that's why they pursue it. Whether it's environmentalism, whether it's masks, vaccines, whatever.
Yeah. I see this kind of pseudoscience coming out, and I don't know. At one time I'm looking at these people thinking, you went through school. You have to have some kind of
a modicum of
brain
ability to think here. Yeah.
Why is it? And a lot of time. Okay, here's what these people remind me of. In the movie Scanner Darkly, Barris, the character Barris, played by Robert Downey Jr. Actually, I can't remember what's in the movie and what's in the book. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was excellent. Cool. Actually, every actor in that movie was excellent.
It was kind of an all-star cast, wasn't it?
Yeah. And also, I got the DVD and I listened to there's a director's commentary with one of the directors, Keanu Reeves, and the daughter of Philip K. Dick.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
It was a real interest. I don't know why I like listening to commentaries. I love listening to them when I can get them. But this one was really good. Anyway, I can't remember what's in the movie and what's in the book. But, so I'm just going to...
Let's just put it out there.
If you watch the movie and you're like, he didn't say that, it's because I can't remember what's in the movie and the book.
Do both
in the movie / book, Barris, it looks like he's trying to kind of scam his friend. And he tells him he's going to create a pure gram of cocaine out of this sunburn lotion. But I know it looks that way in the movie. In the book, you get a little bit of a better explanation out of it. And he says that the scientific name for cocaine is xylocaine. That's the fact that isn't a fact that he globs onto. And out of that, he deduces that he can get a gram of cocaine out of this sunburn lotion and then use it as cocaine.
Huh.
And he's, he sprays it all into a bag and he says, see, for $3 we can get a whole gram of cocaine. And the character Freck, who plays kind of an idiot, is like, well, if they've got a whole gram of cocaine in that can there, how can they afford to sell it for $3? And despite this huge glaring fact that would seem to make Barris's point,
it'd blow it out of the water.
That would seem to, he just kind of goes right on. He doesn't even stop. He says, well, they buy in bulk. That's his explanation.
That sounds like the modern science community and the modern medical community.
Wait a minute. You can't just say that and then go on. I mean, this is a serious objection. Even if cocaine is actually called xylocaine in the scientific community, there's still a problem here. None of this makes sense. And it just, that's how they act. And it's, and then you're vilified for calling any of this stuff into question, you know? And,
that's a good point. That's exactly how they act.
Yeah. By the way, the movie is, it's animated, but it's rated R for good reason. There's
you
a lot of nudity in it. Right. And, I edited my version of it to cut out all the nudity.
You kind of don't need.
Right. Actually, it was difficult because some of the parts with nudity you kind of do need. But I did a pretty good job of editing it out, I think.
Okay.
And you could find it if you went to the Pirate Bay and searched for Scanner Darkly Edited.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's
or maybe it's censored or edited. I can't remember. Anyway,
you sure you want to put that on our podcast? Because
what are they gonna do? How? You got to prove something.
Well, but you just admitted to it, and so they say, "Oh, okay. So for every like imputed download from the Pirate Bay, we're going to charge you so much."
They have no way of telling how often it's downloaded.
Okay.
I don't know. You know what? It's not like it's got a whole lot of download. It's not like a whole lot of people want to download the Scanner Darkly edited version.
Anyway. Yeah.
Or Schindler's List, or The Gods Must Be Crazy, or the other ones that I have on there. Anyway, that's what got me to thinking about all this, and I guess we've talked out that subject for now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's I think that's kind of I think that's important for people to realize, though, that there is, unlike corporate sponsored science, where the money is in the applicability of it, the application. It's okay, fine. Yeah, go do your science, but I want to know how I can monetize it. I want to know what product I can build with it that's going to make me money. Oh, you're doing science into chemistry? Show me how to build a better battery. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what you get in the corporate world. But when you have government sponsored science where you have political people in charge of the money, which I don't mean like elected politicians necessarily, but let's face
that's just it. They're
not
elected.
The people who head government agencies, they are political people who are not elected. They're still political.
Like Fauci.
And they still have a political agenda. And when that's controlling the money that goes into science, science itself is politicized. And so you've got big money behind certain kinds of science, not in terms of the topics, but in terms of the conclusions that they draw. Well, there's every reason to be skeptical of the modern scientific community and what they're saying.
And this gets especially scary with medicine.
Yeah, because medicine is where science begins to acquire the rule, the power of law. Is let's take the science, let's call it medicine, and then based on medicine, let's use the government's right to make public health decisions to create laws that control people.
Yeah, see, and it can't be tested as well. If I come to you and say, build me a better battery, and you do a bunch of research and say, look, if we do this, our batteries will last twice as long.
Okay, well,
let me just go advertise that
and grab your battery and stick them in the same bunny rabbit.
Well, even if you lied and I know you lied, I'll put it out there and people will be like, "Well, this ain't work. This doesn't work worth a crap. I'm not buying that again."
You lose money,
and you lose money, and that's what happens. But with medicine, I can say this will keep you from getting the disease. And then you say, all right, it's now a law that you have to take this medicine. Whether it keeps you from getting the disease or not, the law's still there. And so what happens? We got companies making billions of dollars off of pseudoscience that can't be argued with or questioned because then you're a science denier. Like last week when we talked about the V2 deniers. Now you're a science or a vaccine denier. And it's like, well, I'm not any of those things. I just question what you guys are doing here and making all this money.
I'm a politics denier.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm a narrative denier. That's what I am.
Yeah. So that's, I guess that's about all I got to say.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll kick in a little. I'm going to say this and put it out there, and we might decide not to include it in the podcast. But okay, you know, my sister-in-law recently passed away. Mm-hmm. So she had, you know, whatever stage, I don't know the stages, let's call it end stage kidney disease. Her kidneys were, for the most part, not working. She was supposed to be going to dialysis. She was one of those personalities that kind of wanted to do her own thing, and you know, she would sometimes skip dialysis and whatever. But the point is, getting to dialysis is a pain. And it's annoying. You got to go 3 times a week at her stage of the disease.
Jeez.
Yeah, and it's hours. So
is it
sucks
uncomfortable the way chemo is?
Is it what?
Uncomfortable the way chemo is?
I don't know if it's quite uncomfortable that way, but it does cause like cramps and stuff like that because they're removing fluids from your body, and they might take a liter of water off of your body when they do it or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, she came down with COVID, and because she had COVID, the dialysis place that she normally went to wouldn't take her because they don't have an isolation area, but the other dialysis place does. But it's further away, and she couldn't get a ride there. Now it was kind of awkward because normally it would be like, well, okay, I'll take you there. But it was also at a time when my wife was getting ready to go like on a 2-week stint of work that she would be like, if she had gotten, you know, exposed or gotten it or whatever like that, it was at the timing where we had to make sure that she was able to go off and do this work. So we couldn't take her, but she could go to the hospital and get her dialysis at the hospital. And that's what she did. Yeah. But here's the thing that happened. While she was at the hospital, that's when she went through the main symptoms of COVID. Yeah. Those symptoms were so painful that after they got over, and then it's like, okay, now it's time to talk about getting you back into rehab. During rehab, we'll get you to dialysis. Once you're able to, you know, do certain things on your own, go to the bathroom, get dressed, that kind of stuff, you can go home. But because of how painful the COVID thing was, it kind of, how can I say this? It exhausted her will to keep fighting. And she said, you know what? I'm just going to stop doing dialysis. Now, it's tragic that it went that way, but here's the thing. What she died of was kidney disease. Yeah. She made some what might be considered tragic decisions because of the COVID that she experienced and that kind of stuff. But there's a very real possibility that my wife and her sister, whatever, the estate basically, will be able to collect $9,000 from the government by making the case that because of the COVID, she made the decision to stop the dialysis and therefore her death was a COVID-related death. Now think about that. The government is paying people to make stretch arguments to say that deaths are COVID-related deaths. Yeah. That's how stupid it is, how nuts it is. And that's why people should not be trusting scientists, health officials, government numbers, or anything like that when it comes to modern real-world problems. Yeah. Especially medical related.
You know, one of the other podcasts that I've started listening to recently is Informed Dissent. I can't even remember the guy's name. He's a doctor who does this podcast. It's good. And I started listening to it kind of late, so there were like more than 100 episodes I hadn't heard, so I just went back to the beginning and started there.
Yeah.
And then recently, when Apple dropped the Corbett report, I switched podcast programs to Stitcher.
Right.
And when that happened, I just kind of jumped up to the more modern ones because I got tired of listening to old news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because things that are timely like that. Yeah.
Anyway, this guy's really worth listening to, and he talks about the fear that people are living under and the way it's just the way it's not real. It's a real fear, but there's nothing really to be afraid of. And it's being furthered on by the media and by the government.
Yeah.
And it's being used to control people and to make them do stupid, crazy things. I wanted to plug that for them because it's a really good podcast.
What's the name of it? Informed Dissent?
Yes.
Like dissent into fear?
Dissenting from, DISSENT.
Oh, dissent, like a dissenting opinion. Okay, informed dissent. Okay.
Right. It's two guys who, one's a psychologist or psychiatrist. No, he's a psychologist. And the other's like a kid's doctor. I don't know what they are. They're good though. I don't know.
All right. So, informed dissent.
I guess, yeah.
And what, do you know the name of the podcast of the other guy, the kind of kooky guy?
Oh, the Corbett Report. CORBETT Report.
Okay. So his name must be Corbett.
Yeah. So I think it's James Corbett. He was on YouTube. He had something like 400 plus videos, and then they kicked him off that, and he's no longer on Apple now. So I started using Stitcher.
That's interesting.
We're on Stitcher too.
Popular or something?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird
because those places, they don't shut down people that aren't popular.
Yeah, like we would never get shut down unless.
No matter what we say, we can say anything we want, and we wouldn't get.
Yeah,
shut down.
I can deny all kinds of stuff, and I wouldn't. There's not enough listeners to shut us down. But he had like 400,000 subscribers, maybe 500,000 subscribers.
Chunk.
Yeah,
that's a chunk.
So I don't know. I don't know why he suddenly got shut off at that episode.
Yeah.
So because under their rules, they could have shut him down a long time ago.
Right.
And he's been popular for a while, or at least with the conspiracy theorists and the truth seekers, and really just with anyone who just wants a different view of things.
Right. I might have to go give him a listen sometime.
Yeah, he's kind of it's kooky, but I don't know. When you spend as much time as I do in the car, you got to have a different kind of thing to listen to. You got to find different kinds of things to listen to. It's just otherwise you fall asleep. Speaking of podcasts, okay, this podcast that we're recording right now is episode number 99.
Oh wow, we're almost at episode 100.
Yeah, next week will be our 100th episode.
Gosh, I had no idea we actually did that many episodes.
Yeah, I know. It's funny the number of subjects that we've talked about.
Okay.
So next week is going to be pretty cool.
That's right.
I wish I could think of something cool to make it cool, but
tax evasion.
Pope Francis and tax
evasion. Is it a mortal
sin?
Yeah.
Or is it a sin at all?
Yeah. Is there even a sin to it?
I mean, because we talked about copyright infringement, and our feeling was that it's really not a sin.
Yeah, not inherently. To the extent that it's a sin by way of being a violation of law, but not otherwise.
Right. Okay. News. We got all this stuff going on in Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
And you mentioned last week, what if this is Biden's way of having his own war, to kind of rally people around him.
Right. Presidents want wars.
Yeah.
FDR I was like chomping at the bit to get into World War II.
Yeah, but there wasn't a bad reason for that, Well, at the same time, what if Germany had won instead of Russia?
Well, I don't know. I'm not saying one way or the other whether we should have. I'm just saying that as a president, FDR, he was so eager for that.
Yeah.
The second George Bush was he wanted to ride the he wanted his war, and of course 9/11 happened, but then it's okay, Afghanistan, Al Qaeda. Oh, wait a minute, you know what? I can go finish the job my dad started in Iraq, and he went that way.
Kinda. I don't know about that. Now, I think you might be right, but Rush Limbaugh had an interesting theory on all this. George Bush didn't do anything that we didn't want him to do, or that most of the Democrats didn't want him to do. He's the one who everybody blames for lying about weapons of mass destruction. But he had all the same intel that everyone else had who signed up for the same war.
Yeah.
So what if the entire thing, from beginning to end, was the intelligence community fooling him into attacking?
Because they wanted the war.
They wanted the war, and they wanted to make him look like an idiot for doing it.
Oh.
Because they did. I mean, nobody ever says, well, how did the FBI and the CIA get this so wrong? Instead, they say, how did George Bush get this so wrong?
Oh, yeah, because he relies on intelligence from the agencies. It's not like they were out there. Here's the thing. If
they weren't against him.
If the FBI and the CIA were saying, no, there were no weapons, you shouldn't be going there, then shortly after he pulled the trigger and went in, perhaps even before, but at least shortly after, if they were saying that to them, they would be coming out and saying there would be somebody leaking. No. We knew, we told them there were none.
We would know. They would tell us, but they didn't tell us that.
That's a good point.
It was their intelligence that made, I don't know. You know what? We're off subject now. Okay. After you said that, it's just little things start to jump out at me, and I'm wondering, what if this is all Biden or Biden's handlers or whoever the hell is in charge up there making this happen? Because
to try to keep the party in line for... But see, the thing is, 2024... I guess
I know, but it's not just...
That's a ways off.
America.
Is what I'm...
And it's not just the party. It's kind of the whole world. Look, of all the people that we're going to fight, it's going to be Russia, whom we've avoided fighting for 60 plus years. That's insane. That's such a big thing.
That's absolutely insane.
And over Ukraine, which they've been back. And here's the thing. Like half of Ukraine wants to join Russia.
Yeah,
there's an internal battle there.
Ukraine is. To the extent that there would be a war, there's a large degree to which it would be a civil war.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't just be Russia invading Ukraine.
It wouldn't be like
Russia coming into
like a Soviet Union style, occupation kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't be an occupation. So there's that. And then, let's see, the Russian foreign minister says that Russia is not interested in starting a war after Biden had warned Ukraine in like some kind of public, I don't know if it was a phone call or what, but he had warned that Russia might invade Ukraine in this February.
Oh, okay.
And so this Russian minister is like, we have no interest in invading Ukraine. And then, let's see, Putin accused the U.S. of trying to draw them into a war and using Ukraine as a pretext to impose more sanctions on them. And, you know, we know that Ukraine was a pretty darn corrupt place. Now, there was a new president that Trump had spoken to who was supposed to be trying to clean that up, but I kind of doubt that he really did clean it up. It's probably just as corrupt as it always was.
Yeah, and that kind of calls into question the wisdom of considering, because this was something that came up back during the Trump administration.
Yeah.
Admitting Ukraine, for example, into NATO and stuff like that.
Right, which is another thing that Russia is complaining about. They don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO, which is understandable if they eventually want to take them over. But like I said, a lot of people in Ukraine want Russia.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because their own, like local governments are so corrupt that they just want some relief from that.
Yeah, maybe
they figure Russia will do that.
Would be less corrupt under Russian rule.
They don't understand.
But you could see how they might think it would be.
Yeah. France is going to deploy several hundred troops to Romania in order to support the eastern flank there with tensions with Russia. I don't know why Romania. I can't see a map, so I don't know what that looks like. But everybody's sending troops there. So there is a residential area near in Ukraine, which is mostly Russian-speaking people and people who are for Russia taking over. Mm-hmm. And they're accusing Ukraine of deploying all kinds of anti-aircraft missile systems there in this majority residential area to fight supposedly a drone. Oh. There was also a pro-Russian insurgent on the front line in Donbas. Donbas it's like an area that's kind of divided. Half is, and geographically, it's divided with half of them wanting Russia and the other half wanting independence from Russia. And so there was a little bit of a scuffle there, and the Ukraine Air Force drove a drone in to kill some people. Let's see. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby announced that the Pentagon will deploy 3,000 troops to Eastern Europe in order to get ready for a Russian invasion. Look, it's not as easy as people might think. Russia invading Ukraine. As you pointed out, this would also be a civil war, not just Russia coming in and occupying. So I can see how maybe Biden, who doesn't give a darn for the United States of America, might be thinking, well, yeah, this is a good way to get into a war and raise support. And I don't think anyone would support him for doing this. I would hope most of America would be like, this guy's an idiot. Yeah. I can't believe he's doing this. We've avoided war with these people for how many decades now, and you come in and get us into a war over this stupid little country?
And with good reason. I mean, heaven's sakes, Russia.
Yeah, it's said that it's a third world country with a first world military. Mm-hmm. Either way, they've got that military, and it's not something we want to go up against, especially in a country that isn't part of. It's not even a part of. We have no. We shouldn't have any kind of loyalty to this country. They're not American in any way, and they don't do anything for America.
There's not a compelling American interest in an alliance there.
It's less. It makes less sense than Vietnam did.
Yeah. I mean, there was a perhaps compelling American interest in sort of blocking the kind of onslaught of communist takeover under the Soviet bloc, and then in the Far East by China. But But in this case, it's not that kind of a situation.
Right. Yeah, and it's the Ukrainians and the Russian loyalists are fighting amongst themselves with weapons constantly, right? And they've been doing so for years now. So to act like we're going to come in and just defend Ukraine from Russia is just it's an idiotic way of thinking about this. Mm-hmm. And I hope this doesn't turn into a war. It's going to be so messy. Or it'll be us just sending troops over and having them die and occasionally having a parade for them. And that'll be it. Maybe it won't really be a war. It'll be more like the Afghanistan war. Not that, see, I'm making it sound cheap, like the people who died in the Afghanistan war are somehow less of soldiers. You know, they do their jobs and they're brave warriors. But the war on a whole, I don't think we ever intended to win it.
No. I think that's kind of been recognized.
Yeah. So I guess China Unicorn is a telecommunications company who were going to set up services in the United States. The Federal Communications Commission voted unanimously to revoke that authorization. So they've got to be out of here within the next 60 days.
Well, good.
Yeah. So I'm glad they see something.
Yeah.
You know, there was a big convoy in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada to protest the vaccine mandates. And it was basically all the truckers lining up on the highway. Apparently it was pretty big.
Wow.
And it's getting a lot of
There
publicity.
are some Canucks with some common sense up there.
Yeah. They're not all
well, that's good.
Obedient idiots. So North Korea launches intermediate range ballistic missile.
Oh.
From
like as a
Chang'an.
test or what?
So it reached an altitude of 2,000 kilometers before landing in the Sea of Japan. Okay. I don't know if that's successful or not.
I bet it was a test. I bet it was a test.
Yeah. So it was North Korea's first launch since 2017.
Of a ballistic missile. Okay.
Yeah. Or from that range of ballistic missiles.
Yeah.
Cincinnati Bengals won their game. They're in the Super Bowl. They're going to play the Kansas City Chiefs.
So, well, finally they'll be playing somebody other than San Francisco.
The
you know, I remember
because
82 they went up against San Francisco, and I remember that guy. I watched it with our dad, and I was so disappointed that they lost. Then 7 years later, they went up against San Francisco again, and they lost again.
Yeah. Remember that game? That was the one where he broke his leg? That one guy, turned his leg the wrong way?
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't even remember who it was. I just know that there was a tackle, and the guy's leg, you could see it.
Like flopping around?
Yeah, it went the wrrong way, and it was pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're going to play February 13th. Where are they playing? SoFi Stadium. I don't know where that is. I think that's in California, which means it's going to be pretty warm. I don't know. We're used to playing in the cold. So that's going to be tough, Let's see. 23 people are killed in landslides in Ecuador. There's also flash flooding and landslides in somewhere in Brazil, the state of Sao Paulo. More than, I think, 50 people have died in those.
Man.
So, we get to these rainy seasons and it just causes a lot of...
be kind of ready for them, I guess. Is it unusual?
I don't think it is. I think it's like, well, probably not for as many people to die, but look, okay, let's say you're a farming community and the rains are coming, they're coming. You've got hillsides where you've got, crops set up, and it's like you're trying to keep waterways clear so that the land can drain, set up supports or sandbag systems to keep flooding from heading certain directions. I imagine people do that, and
people probably
it's probably dangerous work.
Yeah, they end up dying every year because of it.
Yeah. Let's see. So over 60 people are killed in a mass stabbing at a camp for stabbing.
60 people?
I guess they're using machetes. These are internally displaced people, which is really, they're just refugees. It's just they haven't left the country of Congo, in the Republic of Congo. And I guess like the gang who is part of a military fight there came in and just started killing a bunch of them with machetes. It's called, what is it? I'm looking for Cooperative for Development of the Congo is the name of the group.
Who did the killing?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Man.
Why would you kill those people? I mean, that of all the people, you'd think if you were running some kind of military operation, you'd think you'd want the people to want you there.
Yeah.
And to just go in and kill them doesn't make any sense. People are animals. There were about 4,000 people living in this camp. So 60 out of, I guess, I don't know if they were able to kill off the killers or
did they drive them out at some point?
Yeah, but that's insane. CNN President Jeff Zucker resigns for failing to disclose that he was in a relationship with the network's vice president. So he was having a thing with the vice president or executive vice president, and he was keeping it secret, and the relationship was discovered during the investigation into the network's former anchor, Chris Cuomo. So they were investigating Chris Cuomo. He's the
one that
Fredo?
Yeah. Huh?
Okay, Rush Limbaugh always called him Fredo Cuomo because he's like the younger brother
of the
right. So they were investigating him, and they found this other thing going on with Jeff Zucker, and I don't know what the vice president's name was, but I guess it was a girl.
Hopefully,
you know what? It doesn't say here. If it was a guy, he wouldn't have resigned.
Yeah, that's true. He would have been celebrated.
So 20 people die and 74 are hospitalized in Argentina when they consumed cocaine laced with poison.
Huh.
9 people are arrested because of this, but that seems... why would you think you're going to get away with... And how did 20 people die? I mean, didn't the first person be like, hey, this is poisonous?
Were they this...
they would have had to have sold all that cocaine.
Were they in a group? That's the thing. 20 people, if they're all in a group... Yeah, why? No,
I don't think so.
Unless they were all doing it together, and it's like a slower acting poison, and they didn't discover until they were dead. But if it's not in one group, if it's kind of distributed, why only 20 people then?
Yeah, well, because
it's not like
are hospitalized.
It's not like they have
so more like 100 people.
Like things set up, like when you find bad meat or something like that. Yeah. It's like, okay, suddenly the alert goes out. Everybody who got meat from this source, you need to dump it because we found out there's, I don't know, botulism or whatever. So you don't have that when it comes to the drug trade.
I guess, if you're a dealer and you're dealing cocaine and it's like, okay, I sold to 20 people today, and at the end of the day you get a call from one of them and said, hey, I think this stuff is bad, and I don't know.
Well, that could be. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. Whoever handed me this stuff, I got to go, take it up with him and make him pay because...
Yeah. Libertarians would use this as a excuse to legalize all drugs so that they could be properly...
Just let it be unregulated. Regulated by the market.
Yeah.
Or regulated by the government. Which is anti-libertarian if you think about it.
Yeah, in the end, the argument doesn't make any sense at all. But, that's all the news I got.
Okay. Well, I got a few things. First, you've got the whole message in a bottle thing. Usually, you expect it to be in the sea, washes up on shore, that kind of stuff. But in Scotland, they found one at a golf course that they were renovating. The Golf House Club in, I don't know how to say the name of the city, Ely, it's spelled E-L-I-E. Ilie? I don't know. Established in 1875. It said workers were making improvements to the fairway bunkers on the 9th hole when they found a bottle buried in one of the hazards. A hazard is like a part of a golf course, like a sand trap or something like that, a water or whatever, where it's kind of hard to get your ball out of. Anyway, they looked inside the bottle. They found a message written on the back of a cigarette package. The message was dated November 18th, 1926. And it said, "We are here today, but where will we be when this is found? We do not know. Good luck." The officials looked into records and determined that the 3 men who signed the note, T. Donaldson, D. King, and W. Eason, were employees at the facility in the 1920s. They're going to bury the message back in the bottle in the same way and the same spot that it was found once their work is completed. So, I don't know. I guess
if I ever
have a time capsule.
Yeah, if I ever did something like that, I would try to make it more compelling. I would like act like there's a big mystery involved here that would make everybody want to search and
keep digging.
Maybe
up.
They were just
some kind of buried.
Start digging up the whole yard.
One of those treasure maps we used to draw when we were kids.
Yeah, X marks the spot, and then. But I wonder if they were just sitting around drinking and like, hey, I got a bottle. Let's put a message here and bury it.
I think that's probably what it was. Okay. I guess this is during the recent snowstorms that swept through the Midwest, and in Illinois in the parking lot of a Jimmy John's, firefighters delivered a baby. They were unable to make it to the hospital in time. So they were dispatched Wednesday morning. Report of a woman in labor in the parking lot. A healthy baby girl was born within 7 minutes of the firefighters' arrival. The call came in at the parking lot, which is actually kind of crazy because Jimmy John's has freaky fast delivery, and this was a freaky fast birth.
7 minutes. Like, they probably just, barely had time to get her into the ambulance.
I know.
Or maybe they just did it right there in the parking lot.
Yeah, it said they... actually, I think they actually delivered out in the parking lot. It says, we wrapped the baby up. Dad cut the cord. We took the baby into the ambulance from there to keep it warm because it was pretty cold out.
Well, okay.
So I guess
they didn't even get her into the ambulance.
Get the baby in first, and then we'll take care of mom, and then at some point maybe think about dad.
Have you ever heard the story about Pee-wee's birth?
Pee-wee's birth? No.
Pee-wee. We got a cousin named Pee-wee. This was in Germany, I think. I might cut this out.
That makes sense.
We'll decide later.
Because his dad, might have been stationed there.
Right. And she was pretty deep in labor, and they took her to the hospital, and I guess she was kind of laying on a bed or whatever, waiting for her room.
Mm-hmm.
And she grabbed the nurse as she was passed. She said, "Oh my gosh, I think I just had a bowel movement." And the nurse lifted up her thing and said, "No, you just had a baby."
Wow, that even beats my first. We in the morning, my wife said, "Today's the day," and you know what? Every single one of ours, when she said, "Today's the day," it was it. That
ended up being the day.
Never was wrong. So she said, "Today's the day." So we went in, and this is at Robins Air Force Base down in Georgia, and the OB that they had there, kind of examined her and said, well, hey, go back home, relax. In a few days, I think you'll probably have a baby. We're like, okay, well, I mean, I don't know anything about this
today's
stuff.
the day.
Yeah. So anyway, that night we were back. He was off, I don't know, playing golf somewhere. They like put out an emergency call to him because we got in there, and by the time they called her labor, he was not able to get there in time, and the official time on paper is that this was a 4-minute labor.
Wow.
When my oldest Danny was
But born. Really, she was in labor from the first time she went there, and they sent her home.
And,
they were saying it was false labor.
The thing that people, I mean, they call it false labor or whatever. What people, I think, often don't understand about labor is that labor itself is not a half-hour, a 2-hour, or 8-hour process. Labor is actually a process that takes weeks. Women start having contractions weeks before they have the baby. Those things that they're calling false labor, they're not really false labor. They're just the early stages of labor.
Yeah. Well, our first, we were so anxious. We got sent home from the hospital at least 3 times. Every time there's a little bit of pain, it was like, oh, this is it, let's go. Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, you're not in labor, just go home and relax for a while. And, all right.
Did they tell you to have sex?
Not today. Yeah, they did. They always say that. That'll bring on labor. It'll also take your mind off it. So, All right.
So, you've got to wonder about the security of the Pentagon when they find a chicken wandering around in a secure area, and they can't even identify how the chicken got there.
Just walking around, huh?
Just walking around. They have not... They can't reveal the exact location. I guess that would be a national secret. It was at a security checkpoint.
Maybe that's what it is, yeah.
And it says it's also unclear where the chicken came from or how she got to the Pentagon. I guess they don't know how she got to the Pentagon. Maybe they know how she got into the secure area. But...
I wonder what would happen if you dressed up like a chicken and tried to get in. You're one of those chicken outfits and just run in and try to get in.
That would be funny.
Just to show everyone how idiotic they are.
One of the staff
I think you'd
members
probably be shot.
Has a small farm, and so they adopted the chicken. But it's like... Don't they have like cameras showing them, like to at least be able to reproduce and say, "Oh, okay, here's where the chicken wandered onto the grounds" and stuff like that?
I wonder if somebody probably brought it in as a joke and
it
got loose. And it's like, shoot, I'm going to get in so much trouble, and then just didn't want to take credit for it.
I did something like that once at work. When I worked at NIOSH in Cincinnati, in one of the labs we had this humidifier. And it was one of those, it was like an ultrasonic humidifier, and it had this great big sort of tank of water that you would refill every morning, and then the ultrasonic to evaporate the water into the air without using heat. Yeah. And somebody, thought it was kind of cute. They put some fish stickers on it, like it's a fish tank. Well, one morning when I wasn't going to be there at work, I came in early, and I put a couple of real goldfish in it.
Oh, yeah? Did you get caught?
I didn't get caught. I mean, I told the secretary I was doing it because she was kind of in on the joke. Mm-hmm. And the girl who saw it, she came down and she told the secretary, she said, "There's real fish in the tank." And the secretary just kind of smiled and said, "No, there's not." And she thought of it. She said, "Maybe there's not." She had to go back and check again.
When I was in high school at Hughes, my buddy's gerbil, I think. Can't remember if it was a gerbil or hamster had babies. Oh. He had like 10 of them.
Wow.
And he had to get rid of them, so we just brought them to school and let them go. I thought
you didn't put
there
him
would
like
be
in the
some
snake
kind
tank or something.
No, we just let him go in the bathroom and walked away. I thought there would be some kind of commotion somewhere. Somebody would find one. Nothing. It was like,
well,
they probably just found a.
They probably just caught him and threw him away.
Yeah, it was. I don't even remember.
Because if it was like spring or fall, like early or late in the season, they might have also even gotten outside.
They would have gone outside.
Away. But if it was
they would have had to go through a lot of hallways to get outside because it was like in the center of the building.
You were hoping for like a Mississippi Squirrel Revival kind of a...
Yeah, something like that. And none of that happened. It was kind of boring. It's a big letdown.
All right. Well, okay, last item, and this is kind of a double item because I sent you a couple pictures beside. Did you get those, by the way?
Okay, let me see here. Yeah.
Okay. So the news story on comes from Sky News. It's like okay, guys, is it time to stop buying from China? Anything made in China? So England has they're going to do their Queen Elizabeth II's Jubilee. And so they had a bunch of, plates, teacups, that kind of stuff made up in China, which featured a banner proclaiming the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. Jubilee spelled Jubbly.
Platinum Jubilee. I don't know what a Jubilee is.
Well, I guess it's the Chinese version of a Jubilee.
Oh, they misspelled
Jubilee.
Platinum Jubilee. Where? I'm looking at the pictures, but I don't know what I'm looking at or I'm looking for.
Well, it's Queen Elizabeth, so you see where it says Platinum Jubilee? Oh, the pictures that I sent you?
See that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Platinum Jubilee thing is in the email I sent with the links. That's the link to the Sky News thing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is while I was on the track of, okay, guys, it's time to stop buying stuff that's made in China, I decided to throw one more item, and this is in my house. So Wayne Gretzky, 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 is a hockey player.
Yeah.
Okay. If you look on the back of the box, and this is like a cartoonish, like oversized bobblehead type doll kind of a product.
Oh, it's a bobblehead. Okay.
Ish. But you can see the name is Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, they misspelled.
And of course, I sent two pictures. One showing the misspelling clearly. The other, if you zoom in on it enough, you can see, yes, this was made in China.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd throw that in there. You can put that up. Do we have a place to upload pictures and stuff, or is it?
Yeah, there's a show notes under each episode on the web page is a list of show notes where they got links and pictures if
pictures
I wanted them, videos, stuff like that. Yeah, I'll put the pictures.
All right, cool. So anyway, guys, start buying American.
Yeah, right. Like, you can find anything made in America anymore. I don't think that even exists.
Even if you have to spend a little bit more, buy American. And in fact, I would say buy local. If you have to spend a little more, buy in your own state.
Red Pilled America did a couple shows on... They decided we're going to try to have a hat made in America. And it was, almost impossible for them.
Wow. Did they finally get it?
I think they finally did, and you can go there and buy a hat that's actually made in America.
Wow.
But they had to go through a lot in order to be able to do that. It wasn't just, I want to buy American. Most of the time, you can't find American. Mm-hmm. There is no American.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if you can, we've been saying that for so long. I mean, you remember in the 80s when... Reagan first started saying, hey, we can have stuff made anywhere, and made it, he took the first steps toward making it difficult to manufacture things in America and making it easier to manufacture in other countries.
Oh,
and that is Trump's complaint of Reagan. He said, yeah, Reaganomics work. He did a lot of good stuff with his with trickle down and all that, but
he didn't uphold the
gave up
American industrial manufacturing base.
Right. He let it down, and now nothing is made in America. Our medicine isn't even made in America.
And Trump
we don't even have the stuff to make medicine.
Trying to reverse that.
Yeah, he was on his way.
Steps, but
right. And it's a shame that all of that came to naught, and I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens in 24, but I'm not holding my breath.
All right. Well, that's all I've got in news today.
Okay. I don't have a saint.
Oh, I forgot about saints.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I forget. I didn't forget. Well, I remembered like an hour before you called that I had just heated up some food.
We need to have.
I have to eat.
I don't know. It's like
we need a list of them that we can
just
go down to the next list.
Or I'm thinking like a prep day. Like, okay, we just agree we're going to spend, I don't know, 2 hours on Tuesday, not getting together necessarily, but set aside 2 hours to prep for whatever.
Yeah,
the topic plus the saint plus whatever.
That sounds so organized.
Well, we'd say it, but we'd never do it.
Yeah, I know. There's always... Yeah, I spent time prepping, and really you spent like 5 minutes looking through some headlines. All right, well, think about what we said, and as always, folks...
Circle the beads.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
When I get this feeling, I need sex.